So in this front part of the pasture, I have these little sections I call life islands. I did something different from the main pasture area, where I created these, approximately, I'd say, 6 to 7 foot wide strips in various patches where they're protected from the sheep, protected from the deer, and I just let stuff grow in them, and I've planted a bunch of stuff too. So here's some fireweed, there's some native cherries, some thimbleberry there, and then I planted a bunch of, from acorns, I planted a bunch of the native white oak, also called Garry oak. So you can see there's one there, there's one there, another there. They're all grown with various levels of success. They're definitely not growing fast, but you don't really expect oaks to grow fast. But I also planted some, and the other planted from seed. These are white mulberries. White mulberries are definitely not happy here. Most years they die to the ground and grow back up from the ground. Definitely not very happy. And those I have been watering and taking care of. These little oaks, they've never ever been watered. Just this year I decided to check on them after several years of neglecting them to see if they're still alive. And they're there, so I gave them a little bit of compost and mulch around them. Hopefully that'll help them be more successful. I did plant a bamboo up here in the front. This is a variation of Phylostachys areosulcata, is this variety. So it's called golden crookstem bamboo, but this one is a cultivar called spectabilis or spectabilis. I'm not sure how people like to pronounce it, but it has it's actually a really pretty bamboo. Most of them have faded here, but when the canes are new, you can see how the canes are this beautiful golden color. When the canes are new, they newly come up, they're golden with a green stripe on alternating sides. So it's a very pretty bamboo, but unfortunately this bamboo is not healthy. I think Washington is not probably the greatest place to grow bamboo. Likes a lot more rain in the summer. So my favorite trees are oak trees. And when we first found out that we were moving here from Maryland to Western Washington, I wanted to bring a whole bunch of, thankfully the timing worked out right because we were moving in September, late September, beginning of October. The timing worked out well. The trees were dropping acorns in Maryland, so I gathered a whole bunch of acorns from various places locally. And then as we were driving across the country, we gathered many, many more acorns every time we stopped at a rest stop and there was an acorn tree, there was an oak tree dropping acorns. We gathered up acorns and I planted them all in this big patch, just kind of up near where the garden is now. And then the ones that grew well in that patch, I dug up the next year and I planted them down here. So you might look at this section right now and say, that's just a stand of firs. But you can see there are some oak trees in here. And I planted a whole bunch of oaks down here, many, many oaks. I had a ton that were on this side. Most of those didn't do very well, but there is one variety that seemed to do pretty well, and that was the northern red oak. So you can see them here among the firs. My plan is to take these and nurture them up to a good size and keep the firs from choking them out, and eventually have this area down here be mostly berry bushes and northern red oak trees. This one has not done very well. He's a sad oak tree. But you can see this one looks pretty good. There's another one over here. This guy put on a lot of growth this year. He looks pretty good. And I planted these acorns that same fall that we moved here in 2017. That's now 2025, so not the fastest growing trees. You can see there's lots of serviceberry down here, a Lots of wildlife food. Then there's two that are over here that are not northern red oaks. Here's one. This guy's doing really good. He's very tall. He's almost keeping up height-wise with these fir trees. These fir trees have been growing here pretty close to the same amount of time, maybe a little bit longer as these oaks. I do have two chestnut oaks that are doing good. I really love chestnut oaks for some reason. They make really big acorns. It's probably one of the reasons why I like them, but I like their leaves. There's another chestnut oak right here doing really well. But mostly in this section, northern red oaks. And a lot of the ones that I planted here lived. There's probably two that I had to remove the cages from because they just died. There's this guy here. Next to him is a nice native hazelnut bush that I'm protecting from the deer. It looks like it wants to grow, looks happy, so I'm going to keep it there. Here's another northern red oak. This northern red oak's very tall, but very spindly. I don't know what's up with him, but he looks the healthiest he's looked of any year so far. Hopefully he starts putting on some thickness, because he's not going to survive if he stays so skinny. Also in this section, I planted a whole bunch of the western white pine. You can see each one of these little stakes, these little snow stakes, is a white pine. They're doing really good. But I've got them planted all throughout here. You see more stakes. I planted quite a few of those. I think I planted 20 of these total. They're looking great. Nice patch of snowberry here. More here. But yeah, so the plan here is oaks up there, berries, white pines in this section, along with, just like around the driveway, an intermix of the native cherries. Really great wildlife food. Plus the wood is great to use. I like turning bowls, and they make great bowl wood. Here's some of the native cherries on here. Really good wildlife food. And then I had a whole bunch of extra oak trees that were left over from planting. I just had too many to put other places. So I had this idea for like a kind of an oak hedge in this area. And it worked out with varying success. You can see how the trees at this end are very short and stubby. Then they get taller and taller and healthier as you go down the row. And then you start to get towards the end of the row and they get shorter and shorter and shorter and stubbier, and they start to get like this leaf bleaching. Not sure what's up with that. But the vast majority of the trees in this row are those northern red oaks. Like I said, they did very well. They're growing really well. I'm really happy with those. They look really good. I think there's one, oh yeah, there's one chestnut oak right here that's in here that's doing good, which I'm happy with. So I've got 3 chestnut oaks. Hopefully they can make acorns one year, probably for my grandchildren. But they look really good. So I was kind of thinking of like grafting these to each other as they grew to make like a living hedge, but I don't know. Their growth rate is not as high as I was hoping, and I might just let them grow healthily and, you know, thin a few out in the future. Not sure yet, but it's kind of cool. I can picture one day, this is one of our paths we walk, being able to walk along here and have these oaks towering over us and dropping lots of acorns down here, providing a lot of wildlife food. I did plant, this weird little pine here. This is supposed to be a Korean nut pine. They've had varying success. It kind of like dies back and then grows again and dies back and grows again. That one's doing the best it's ever done this year. But over here is a second one. You know, this one's really struggling. Not doing the greatest. You can see how little he is, and you can see this main part of the plant here is, all this is dead. So, not sure what's up with him. I don't even know if these are truly Korean nut pines. That's what they were labeled at the nursery I got them from, but when I look at the number of needles that a Korean nut pine is supposed to have, this one just has needles that are in pairs of 2. So that's not a good sign. But there are some Siberian nut pines that are 2 needle pines, so maybe they're those. But it doesn't look like a Korean nut pine to me. I bought I think it was 10 seedlings from the conservation district of the native western white oak, or Garry oak. Here's one that's doing pretty well. They've been in the ground a good number of years. We'll add that to the caption. That one's a little guy, but this year he made this one little really tall top. So he actually, more than doubled his height this year. So I'm pretty pleased with him. This is one of only 2 sawtooth oak seedlings that made it down in this section, compared to that clump that I showed you earlier. But this guy looks really good. He's nice and bushy. He had zero any kind of care at all. I didn't even know he was there until this year. I saw all the green. I was like, what is that? And I came over and found him. So I gave him some compost and some wood chips around him. He just looks really, really good. And I give him some water occasionally this year. And here we got another northern white oak. Sorry, not northern white oak. This is the Garry oak, the native oak tree. It looks really good. And there's another one here. He's a stubby guy, but looks healthy. Put on a lot of leaf growth this year. Got another little stubby guy. He's got this big fir tree blocking his way. I probably should cut that down and give him some more light, but I mean, he looks very healthy. Nice dark green leaves. Throughout this section, all those acorns that I planted before that I told you about, there are some remnants. Like here you can see this is some kind of oak tree, maybe a chestnut tree. That might be a northern red oak. Another oak tree here. There's another one here. That one's definitely a northern red oak. That they didn't do very well. They're just hanging on. They're alive, sitting there. There's another Garry oak. And then here's another little clump of oak trees that I planted. I think these are actually mostly northern white oak from the East Coast. There's how many there? There's one. Oh, it's a chestnut oak. So there's one northern white oak here, and then there's a chestnut oak, a little chestnut oak next to it that haven't really grown very much. It's compared to those ones across the way over there that are doing a lot better. And there's another Garry oak. And next to this little willow tree here, another Garry oak here. And then here this is another northern red oak, but then clumped in with it looks like 2 northern white oaks. Northern white oak here, and then another northern white oak here. So interesting. They're actually growing this year. They're actually putting on some growth. But they've been in the ground here and cared for as long as those others over there. So maybe they're just taking a different path in life. Then we have another Garry oak, and then this is the last of the sawtooth seedlings. It's not doing super great, but it looks okay. Looks healthy. It's got some new growth on it. I gave it a little care this year. And this is the last in the row of the Garry oaks. Doing pretty good. Put on a lot of growth this year. You can see this awesome, really dense cluster of big buds it has at the top there. That'll be next year's. They're a really cool oak tree. The leaves are very leathery and thick, and Just, you can tell they're very like waterproof, like they really hold their moisture well. Very solid tree, very stiff. I like that tree. And then the other monkey puzzle is over here. You can see, you know, color-wise, not nearly as good looking, but, you know, he's doing okay. He actually grew a little bit this year. He's got this, that, and that. That's all. Oops. That, yeah, these 3 branches and this top all grew. That was not there this year, so starting to make some growth. But this area here is going to have very few trees in it. It's mostly going to be berry bushes. There's a lot of service berry. There's a lot of red huckleberry. You can see a few berries left here in the red huckleberry. There's a bunch of those in there. There's a couple evergreen huckleberry in here. This should be a very nice wildlife food foraging area here. And people food foraging area too. We like eating the red huckleberries. That biggest black locust that I showed you, the very first black locust, these are its contemporaries. These are the purchased seedlings that I planted at the same time. There's 5 in this section, so there's that one, and there's one growing next to a stump over here. He's not doing too great. He's a pretty crappy little guy. But he's alive. He's got leaves on him. There's that one. And then there's a less great looking one back here behind this fir tree. This area is an area where people were burning a lot of garbage, and there was like a RV back here and tons of trash. A lot of the ground here, like we find trash underneath of it, so I don't think the soil is the healthiest over here. So that could be impacting some of the tree growth, but a lot of the fir trees are pushing through it and pushing past it, so can't be too terrible. But there's definitely some weird patches on the ground over here and some places that don't seem to grow things very well.